There's this misconception about drivers overtaking other drivers. The slower driver saying, hey, why is this guy in such a rush? I'm just going to catch him at the next red light anyways. He's saving 5 to 20 seconds on his commute. But these critics, people that say this, they fundamentally misunderstand principles of time management. And that time management that applies to your driving also expands to apply to all areas of your life. Believe it or not, Americans spend 408 hours on average per year in their cars. That comes out to 70 days non-stop. That's an insane statistic. Now, there's a time value to strategic driving. Small, little incremental improvements can actually compound and yield massive gains over time. So you may think, hey, this driver is only saving 10, 20, 30 seconds by getting a couple cars in front of me. But what you're not realizing is that a certain percentage of the time, that means that they can actually avoid a red light that you will hit. And that red light, as you guys know, based on how these street lights are programmed, that can actually compound. So now it's not just 10, 20, 30 seconds of them getting in front of you, but all the various lights that are compounding, that are cascading after that, the extra greens they may be hitting, such that now they're saving 3-5 minutes on that single drive. Now, if you consider those earlier numbers of 408 hours per year, just taking 5% of time savings on a given drive saves you 20 hours a year, almost a full day you get back just by saving 5% of your time on each drive. In my opinion, that's the greatest strength, greatest benefit, but there are other benefits too. You create buffer time for any unexpected delays. Let's say there's an accident or something else that happens on the road, you're good. You have extra time if you get there early to be relaxed, to not be stressed, to not be in your sympathetic nervous state. That's when you're up, you're more fight and flight rather than parasympathetic rest and digest, more calm and relaxed because you're not rushing. You're not stressed about arriving on time. Now, as for my own personal driving philosophy, I do the quickest driving I can that is both safe and in the legal gray area where I'm not going to get a ticket. So I'm not going to say completely legal because on a highway, the speed limit is 65 and going 66 is technically illegal, but there's this gray area. A cop's not going to give you a ticket unless you're going probably more than 75, at least out here in Nevada. In your state, that might be different. Similarly, on city streets, if the speed limit is, let's say, 35, I'll probably be going 40 and pass a cop and not have any issues and not get a ticket. So that's number one, the legality, and then number two is safety. So if it's raining, if there's poor visibility, if the road conditions are such that I don't feel safe going that speed, which is 5 to 10 above the speed limit, at least for me here in Nevada, but you proceed at your own risk. I'm not going to guarantee that you won't get a ticket by doing so. But if it's not safe, I will slow down, which is very obvious to fellow car and driving enthusiasts. But I remember when I was living in San Diego, and anytime it would rain, which is not very frequent, there would be so many accidents. You pull up Google Maps to just look at the traffic and just accident all over. And I believe the reason is because oftentimes drivers see a speed limit of 65, and cars with modern tires, they've gotten so good that you can drive pretty quickly in soaking wet roads and not feel that big of a difference in grip until you lose it. So let's say 30 years ago, if it was raining, you would really feel how skittish the car is, how limited your grip is. But now with improvements in technology, people feel a little bit more confident, and now they're pushing the same speed. They're going 75 on the highway, and they hydroplane a little bit, or they hit a bump, they lose control, they spin out and crash. Or they're just following too close to the car in front of them, which is honestly probably a more frequent occurrence. And then because the braking distance is increased, because the amount that they can actually slow down in a given distance is reduced, then they oftentimes rear end the car in front of them. So these are the things that you have to keep in mind as caveats to this general principle of driving as quickly as you can within the legal gray area. What I don't have tolerance for are those drivers who are going 40 when the speed limit is 45 or 50 and it's a totally open road, totally clear, safe conditions, yada, yada, yada. Now next up, let's talk about safety and responsible driving. You can do what I'm suggesting without actually causing any safety concerns. So what I'm not saying is that you weave dangerously, you act unpredictably, you you change lanes and cut people off with really tight margins such that you increase the risk of a collision. That's not what I'm talking about. And I know some people will push back and say, hey, going above the speed limit is not safe. To which I would say, actually, the absolute speed data suggests is not as important to safety, but rather the consistency of speed and the relative speed. So if you're going a similar speed to those around you, you're actually much better off versus if you're going way too fast or way too slow. And we've all seen countless drivers who merge onto the highway, but they're going like 40 miles an hour, right? And the cars around them are going 65. That's going to cause, that difference in speed is what's going to cause the collision. If they start accelerating and get up to 65, it's going to be a lot easier for them to merge safely. It's also important here to have a proactive versus a reactive driving approach. This is one thing that I love about track driving. Even if you don't want to chase lap times and obsess over, shaving off tenths, there's still so much to learn just from going to a few track days yourself. Because one of the most important things, one of the first things I teach all of my students that I have at the racetrack is that you need to scan far ahead. Don't just look right in front of you where you're going, look far ahead. So I'm not looking right here 20, 30 feet in front of my car, I'm looking all the way to where the road disappears. Because by doing so, I can prepare for what's to come. Now on the racetrack that allows you to optimize your line, it does actually make you faster as well, and also way safer. Now what you'll find is that you'll do the same thing on the streets. And rather than just staring at the car in front of you, whether it's slowing down or not, you're not even looking at the car in front of you, you're looking ahead of the car in front of you to see what is coming up. Now, one way you can easily distinguish a good versus not so good driver is that the better driver is actually going to start applying the brakes and slowing down before the car in front of them even has their brake lights on, because they're seeing the slowdown and the pileup far ahead. And what I also suggest is as you're coming to a slow and gradual stop, don't slam on your brakes, you also put on your hazards like this. Now the reason I do that is so many people are on autopilot when they're on the highway, and if you see a car far ahead and it's slow, you may not realize that it's actually stopped or coming to a stop, and you maybe on your phone, maybe distracted, maybe just zoning out, the average person may not realize they need to start getting on their brakes. So by putting the hazards on, you're now interrupting that automatic pattern where people just drive in autopilot and they're thinking, oh wait, what's going on? They're going to be more alert and more likely to slow down as well and not rear end you. Now, how does this apply to an overall broader life philosophy? I firmly believe that if you are highly intentional with your time, you're going to unlock so many benefits. I started being more and more this way probably around end of high school to early college. That was also around the time that I had some serious health concerns, and I got hospitalized, I lost a lot of weight, I had some serious health conditions, which you can hear about in other videos. And what I realized is how finite our lives are, how limited our time on this planet is, and for that reason, I want to make the most out of the limited time that we have available. Now, within reason, because if you overly obsess over maximizing every minute, which I made that mistake in my past when I was doing plastic surgery, and I talked about that again in previous videos, then you're going to burn out. It's actually not as fun when you're optimizing every minute. But if you dial that back, so rather than going all the way, let's say 10 out of 10 extreme in terms of time attention and time management, let's say you go 8 out of 10 or even 9 out of 10. I think there you can get all the benefits with very little price to pay. And this is not just for people that are type A. Yes, I'm obviously type A, but even if you're a more go with the flow kind of person, being more intentional in these key areas will unlock so many hours per week. And I'll show you how I do this myself. You probably feel like you don't have enough time. I mean, you live in modern society, you're watching this YouTube video, you believe there aren't enough hours in a day, and I get that, I feel the same way. You probably want to exercise, you want to be productive at work, get a lot of things accomplished, hopefully get promotions or grow your business. You want to spend time with your friends and family, you want to spend time with cars, whether that's driving, tinkering, going to the racetrack, etc. And we only have 24 hours in a day. So when you start getting more intentional, you can unlock and get way more done in that same limited time. As an example, I want to get 6 to 8 hours of zone 2 cycling just for my heart health and longevity every single week. So what I do is actually structure it around my meetings with my team. Now it is, it depends on what kind of meetings they are. Since it's my company, and I'm the CEO, I can be the weird boss that is on the bike during the meetings, and I'm not the one who's normally doing much talking, since talking during zone 2 isn't really fun anyways. You're at a point where you can talk in complete sentences, but it's not comfortable or enjoyable to do so. So I understand that not everyone can do that, but you can use these little hacks in different areas. So as an example, going back to when I was doing plastic surgery, I would ride my bicycle to and from the hospital, which was shockingly rare. Everyone thought it was strange because it was, let's say, 100 degrees outside when I was riding my bike, or you know, you're a doctor, a surgeon, you shouldn't be riding your bike. That's like what students do. I'm like, that's just silly. I need to be exercising every day, and I don't have enough time. So if I commute while riding my bike, I can get my cardio in, and I actually can cycle. I can actually get from my home to work in 2 minutes less. So I'm actually saving time too, and killing two birds with one stone. It's a win-win. So again, by saving time in these little ways, it adds up, it compounds, and then you have extra time for other things. So for me, my priorities are my health as number one. Health and fitness are, I guess, interrelated there. My businesses, my personal relationships, and cars. I did a full day of car reviews yesterday, reviewing your guys' cars. I went to the racetrack both days last weekend. I'm still cycling and doing strength training, hanging out with my girlfriend and seeing my family, and doing all these things only because I'm being highly intentional with my time. And also at the same time, trying to build what I'm doing professionally, my various businesses. Running one business is hard enough, running multiple and growing multiple is also challenging, but doing so is fun, it's rewarding, and hopefully in the future it'll allow me to really take care of my family in a way that I can only dream of. It'll allow me to have that dream garage and do all the things I want. And what people miss is that the journey of also improving your skill set and seeing yourself become a better entrepreneur or become a better surgeon or a computer programmer or whatever your profession is, there's a pride you take in your craft and seeing progress in anything, whether it's cycling, getting faster, strength training, getting stronger in the gym, or your work. There's something intrinsically rewarding about progress. So it's not just, I don't want you guys to focus on just the destination of how much money you're gonna make and what car you're gonna buy in the future, but also how you get there and the type of person you become in order to get that thing. And there's a point about driving hidden in there, which is that life is not a race. It's not just about getting from point A to point B as quickly as possible, but also enjoying the journey. Which is why as I'm driving on this nice-ish road, this is unfortunately the best we have in Vegas, I'm enjoying the drive. I'm not rushing it. I'm doing it at a speed that is comfortable, and you know, when I am trying to drive a car harder, I will drive it faster because then I can dance with it and it'll, you know, play underneath me and rotate and wiggle, and it is more exciting, it is more engaging. But there's also times when I want to just slow down and take it all in. That's fine. It's about being intentional. For most of us, 99% of our driving is not fun driving. It's getting from point A to point B, going from home to the grocery store to the gym to work and back. And in those instances, between lights, on these grid streets or on the highway, it's not really fun. So yeah, I want to get from point A to point B as quickly and safely as possible, which means I will go 5 to 10 above the speed limit. Again, in the legal gray area where I'm not going to get a ticket, but I can also minimize the time required for me to get from point A to point B. The way I see it, life is short. Grab it by the balls and get the most out of it. Be present as you age at each stage of your life, and be very deliberate and intentional and protective of your time. It is your most important asset, more than money, more than anything else. It's your time. And that means don't let things waste your time. As Warren Buffett said, the most successful people are very adept at saying no. They say no most of the time. You have to say no to these opportunities that maybe 10 years ago you would have said yes to, especially as you start improving and upgrading your life. You can't just say yes to everything that comes your way. Everyone has a certain balance point where they would be happiest in their life, and finding balance doesn't mean you have to take it easy or go with the flow. Every person is going to find a different point on that balance beam. And you have to start by being deliberate with your time. But my friends, I'm curious what you think. Are you like me? Do you try to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible in a safe and relatively legal way? Or are you more go with the flow, drive slow, doesn't really matter? Would love to hear it with a comment down below. Much love, and I'll see you in that next one.